In this video, we're going to be looking at FabFilter Pro-Q4 and see how it stacks against Sonible Smart EQ4 and tools like Soothe. So if you're wondering which EQ you should buy in 2025, hopefully you'll have the answer at the end of this video. So let's jump in. So the first feature we're going to compare is the overall usability and ease of use. In Pro-Q4, anytime I hover over the EQ, there's a clear indication of the kind of filter you're about to add. Here I can see it's a low shelf. If I just click, if I hover here, I can see this is going to be a bell filter. A bell filter gets added. In Smart EQ4, anywhere you double click on the EQ, by default, a bell filter gets added. So if you want down here to change it to a shelf, you'd have to change the filter. Likewise, if I wanted to add a high cut filter, I would double click, hover, and change it to a high cut. Both of these EQs allow you to make changes either in stereo or mid and side mode. So by default, anytime you add a filter, it's in stereo, but you can click it. Now this filter is only active for my mids. I can change this filter to side. Likewise in Pro-Q4, I can change it down here, stereo, mid, side. And note that Pro-Q4 also gives you left and right, just like the predecessor Pro-Q3. So Pro-Q4 is the clear winner in regards to usability. Next, let's compare dynamic EQ. Odds are if you're working on a track, a lot of the changes that you're going to be making is in dynamic mode. So you want your filters to be triggered dynamically. In Pro-Q4, I can just drag on this knob and now my filter is a dynamic filter. In Smart EQ4, I can just toggle it right here. There's a button that says dynamic. If I click that, it's now in dynamic mode. Note that Smart EQ4, as soon as you make the filter dynamic, will give you a bunch of options right on the screen. For Pro-Q4, you have to toggle this menu over here. And now you have additional options. By default in Pro-Q4, the filter gets triggered automatically. So the threshold is set automatically, but you can change that yourself. So if I wanted to trigger once it hits negative 20 dB and only then I can do so. If I want to increase that so that way it only triggers when it hits minus 8 dB, I can do that. Same thing over here. By default, it's minus 24. You can bring it down to minus 30, minus 5, minus 10. You can make that change. You can also change the attack and release time of the filter. And this one is actually a really nifty option because sometimes you want the transient to come through, but then you want to squash out the rest of the signal so you can make that attack slower. And I'm going to decrease this threshold. See how that filter is triggering slowly? I can change the attack time so it triggers right away. Likewise with the release, I can make that release slow or I can make it really fast so that way it triggers and releases right away. Likewise in Smart EQ4, I can make a very fast attack such as 0 milliseconds and very slow release. See here, and then I can also make that attack slower if I wanted to attack slower, make a very fast release. The one feature that Pro-Q4 has that Smart EQ4 does not have is the ability to change the dynamic mode into spectral dynamic mode. And you do that by clicking this button right here. And now what will happen is every time signal will come through that filter, as you'll see, as you can see, instead of ducking down that entire filter, it's making spectral changes similar to the way that Soothe works. So you can create a very wide filter, give it a dynamic range, so maybe 6, 7 decibels, and put it in spectral mode. And as you can see, it's pulling out some of those resonance from my sound. For those of you who've been thinking about purchasing Soothe, Pro-Q4 may not be a good alternative for you, so you have everything in one EQ rather than running multiple plugins. The other benefit with Pro-Q4 is it doesn't just work in resonance reduction, you can dynamically increase the gain while still running in spectral mode. So now, likewise, you can see here, it's making changes in spectral mode. See, if I disable it, that entire filter gets triggered. If I run it in spectral mode, it'll make those changes. For those of you who have it, this is similar to how the stabilizer works and the spectral shapers work in Ozone. The Ozone algorithm is making spectral changes to my signal. Likewise, if we look at the spectral shaper, we can do some of that resonance suppression or tone adjustment. If we increase this amount, Ozone will start to reduce and I can, again, change the tone of that. So if you don't want a whole suite of plugins running on your channel, you can do all of this now in Pro-Q4. Again, Pro-Q4 comes on top here in regards to its ability to make dynamic filter changes. Next, let's take a look at the grouping functionality. So if I want to see every instance of Pro-Q4 across the board in my project, I can click down here And now I can scrub through each and every instance that I have in my project. Once I play the song, I can see if there's any masking happening if I have the analysis enabled. I can quickly make those adjustments. I can zoom in and I can zoom out, or I can click on one instance to pin it above all the other ones. And again, I can make those changes all in one view now. I no longer have to open up multiple instances. The way Smart EQ4 handles group management is with this feature right here. I can click on Add to Group, Synth Bus, and you can see I have my synth bell here. I can add an instance of my synth pluck. Let's say I want my instruments here as well. So let's add my violins and my brass tabs. Now if I click Learn All and play, Smart EQ4 processes all of the sound that comes through each and every one of those channels, and it dynamically creates a filter for me. As you pull an instrument in any one of these groups, say if I bring the synth bell to the back, as you can see, it dynamically changes the shape of that filter that it added. So Smart EQ4 really shines for individuals who may not know how to make those subtle changes to make certain instruments sit well in a group. This works for a drum bus as well. As you can see, I've created a drum bus group over here and put every one of my elements. I want my kick and snare to be on the front, my tambourine and hi-hats to be in the mid, and my perks and my crash to be at the back. And Smart EQ4 automatically created a filter for each and every one of these. So I can say this is a drum snare, kick, drum set, hi-hat, drum set, maybe hi-hat for my crash as well. So you can see it automatically changed the shape of that filter based off of what I'm telling it that it is. So now I can move things around. If my kick is too strong, I can simply move it down. If I want my hi-hats to be louder, I can move them up. And it creates space for that in my mix. So if you don't really know how to get your drums to sit nice in the mix, or if you don't know how to get your instruments to sit nicely in the mix, the Smart EQ4 really helps you out over here. Additionally, Smart EQ4 allows you to change the mode of each filter. If I only want it to be affected by the group, I can change it to group mode. So if we go here and change these to group mode, you can see that all it's doing is creating space in the mix based off of where that instance is, if it's in the front, middle, or back. The last option I want us to look at when we're running in group mode or tracking group mode is this adaptive feature over here. If I increase that to 100, you'll see what happens as I play the music. The filter begins to change based off of the signal that is coming through. So Smart EQ4 really shines by making dynamic spectral changes when it's running inside of group mode. And because of that, Smart EQ4 is a clear winner in regards to group management. Another feature I want us to look at is sidechaining. If you've been mixing your own tracks, then you know that you sometimes have to sidechain your kick to your bass to duck down some of the overlapping frequencies. Sometimes you have to do it vocals and a guitar. And unfortunately, Smart EQ4 does not have sidechaining capabilities. However, Pro-Q4 has improved on its sidechaining capabilities from its predecessor. So let's take a look at that. I've set the kick as the sidechaining input on my 808. So now when I play the song, you'll see the kick and the 808 signal together. If you don't want to analyze your sidechain signal, you can always disable it from here. I can disable it right here. Or if you only want to see your sidechaining signal, you can leave that. So now I can only see the kick. Or we can leave both the post EQ and the sidechain. As you could see, there was some overlap in the 50 Hertz range. So let's create a filter. Let's make it dynamic, duck down maybe about 5 decibels. And then let's click these arrows and enable our sidechain. So now every time the kick will play, that filter will get triggered. So you can see over there. One of the things that I love about Pro-Q4 is the ability to freely control where that filter will get triggered. So if I want this filter to be triggered based off of the signal that is coming through from the 80 Hertz to 130 Hertz range, I can now control that, even though this filter is sitting at 55 Hertz. So now the filter and the trigger are decoupled. Additionally, you could have multiple filters and each one being independently triggered based off of whatever range you specify. So now this filter will no longer be triggered at 1600 Hertz. It'll be triggered based off of this range that I've set for it. So the cool thing about Pro-Q4 is it allows you to specify a trigger range for your sidechain for each and every filter independently, which is super convenient. The last feature I want us to look at is AI capabilities. Now, unfortunately, Pro-Q4 does not have any AI capabilities, which you may or may not care about. Smart EQ4 allows you to individually record each and every instance and specify what that instance is. So I have a Smart EQ4 on my master channel. I can set record, have it play. And now it used its machine learning algorithm to dynamically set a filter for us. And here I can say this is a trap beat. Based off of that, you can see it created dynamic filters. I can increase or decrease however much I want, or I can add an additional filter and flip this one. If I want my 808 to really stick out, I can inverse the changes that the smart filter applied. And then I can also make them adaptive, or I can make one or the other adaptive. So for those of you who don't know how to mix down your own tracks, this could be convenient because you're allowing the system to make the changes dynamically to your signal. So if you're looking for an EQ that has AI capabilities, Smart EQ4 is the clear winner here because it gives you the ability to analyze the signal that's coming through that channel and specify what kind of track it is. So if it's a trap beat or if it's a regular hip hop beat or rock, and it dynamically makes changes to your track. So if you're just learning how to mix and master your tracks, I recommend Smart EQ4. If you're looking for a professional, full-featured EQ, I don't think there's any on the market that compare to FabFilter Pro-Q4. This is hands down my favorite EQ, and I've only been using it for like a week now. So with that being said, I hope this helped you make a decision. And as always, I hope this has inspired you to go and make some music. Peace.